Namaste and hello everyone. Before I begin my story, I really want to thank the UK Manch team or the Manch UK team of Suhani, Subalakshmi, Vidya, and Ambika. Ambika has been fantastic in really helping me to sort of get this live connection going today. And yeah, I had to seriously update a lot of things on my computer to make this work for tonight. If you have any questions, please do post them below this window and I'll do my best to answer any queries that you may have. Otherwise, I'll get distracted while going through my story and trying to really keep on time. So is my team ready to keep me on time? Yes? Good? Okay, excellent. Okay. So I was born in East Africa, and my parents had immigrated immediately after marrying in Gujarat, and they went to East Africa where they set up home for 25 years. They spent 25 years, enjoying a very happy and an idyllic life. And I just want to show you a picture of my family. Now, if you have read Jane Austen's Pride and Prejudice, the Bennet family, well, mine was twice as big and twice as noisy, okay? Now here's a picture, right? There's my mum and dad and my brothers and sisters. And after this lot, there's 4 more. And I was the last one that came up probably about like 12 or 13 years later, something like that. So I grew up in a household where I was surrounded by teenage people or young adults, and I was really the baby. So when we came to the UK, I was just literally a toddler. We settled in Birmingham. And just before I tell you that, the reason why we came to Birmingham was because of Idi Amin. He was getting rid of all the Indians, and my family are very lucky to come as refugees to this country. I actually have no recollection of Africa or anything apart from me being born there, but my older siblings and everything, they hold it very close and very dear to their memories of their childhood. I'm just going to minimize this. And so everybody can hear me, okay? I should have just checked that, yes? Everybody can hear me? Just give me a thumbs up, somebody, anybody, yeah? Okay, I just assume that I carry on, then it's all good. So soon after arriving in Birmingham, about 4 years in, 2 of my sisters got married. I mean, I was probably about 5 or something like that then. And this is them. This is Ranjan and Nalini. They got married. And the reason I mention this is because this one, Ranjan here, she married somebody called Vasant. Yeah, there he is. And that's me between them. And they got married, and I had no idea that 20 years later, that Vasant would become such a huge benefactor, promoter, and supporter of my work when I took my first professional step in dance. And hopefully I'll come to that later, but I remain eternally grateful to Vasant and his family for being really out there for me when it was really challenging and a difficult time to actually move into dance full time. But I had their full support, as I did with my parents and all the rest of my family. So my entry into dance was quite unusual because in Birmingham during that time, there weren't really any classes or anything that we knew that we could enroll or anything like that. I didn't have the good fortune to be able to have a class where I would be able to be enrolled as soon as I was walking or 4 or 5. There's no way that was happening. But what was interesting with as with many young Indian kids at that time, Bollywood films became a huge influence. I mean, it was unmistakable. And my mom, because they were now older parents, they had a lot of time for me to really show me and introduce me to things that they really enjoyed. And particularly my mom, she introduced me to films like Janak Janak Baya Baje, Taro Mein Sach Ke. If my family hearing this, they all know, oh my God, we remember that. And many others. And Gopi Krishna, those people, Vijayanti Mala, all of those. She wanted to show me all these classical dances that were happening, and it really kind of inspired me to start dancing. And it wasn't like they made me to or anything, but whenever anybody or the family gathered in the living room, they said, Mayuri, dance, you know, dance. And I used to somehow, I don't remember that. But what happened when I was around about 8, and I remember this quite distinctly, that after I'd seen one of these Vishantaram films, I literally woke up and I really felt quite clear in my mind that dance was going to have to be my life, and this is what I really truly wanted to do. So from that moment, I started making dance. I wouldn't call it choreographing, an 8-year-old. It's really about putting movements together and really performing. So I was performing for my family, and how I was doing dances was observing these films, you know, winding and rewinding and winding and rewinding, and teaching these movements to myself, and then presenting it to my family. So I'd lock the living room door while I was busy doing this, trying to keep all the noise out and concentrate. And then I'd let my mum in and my sisters in to give me some feedback, which I didn't know that was called feedback. And they would work away on that. And the kind of things I did was like, you know, like I remember when I was 9, I really wanted to really particularly copy this dance from Jalbin Machli. And I wanted the costume to look particularly like that. I was kind of a bit fed up of my sisters dressing in different kinds of saris and costuming me and doing all kinds of things. So I said, right, Mum, you know, I really want to go and see Jampa Ben. Now, this poor Jampa Ben, I don't know, she's probably totally what she thought of me. But I came there with my little scribbles and samples of how I wanted my costume to look. And she took me very seriously, thank God. And or maybe she was good, you know, humoring me. But she suddenly created my first costume that I had sort of adapted from one of the films I saw. So my entry into dance, I guess, and my love for it was the one thing that kept me sane in a huge household with so much noise and so much going on, and you know, there's a lot going on in my family all the time, and it was great, you know, and you know, there's huge and boisterous kind of life going on. But in that, the kind of constant for me was the dance. And so this community entry into dance, the beginnings of dance with no classes being available at that time, I, you know, created these replicas. So I'm going to show you some pictures of me having made some of these dances and performing them. So I was performing them in community events, variety shows, in you know, Birmingham Town Hall. So I'll just show you some funny pictures of me. You know, here's never, you know, I found these, you know, these community people. This one in Birmingham Town Hall. All these things I'm making up by myself. This is another one. Yeah, all these things, all these different costumes, and even, like, you know, we talk about doing dance in different spaces, but here is me in a supermarket as well. Oh dear. Can't believe I'm showing you this. I mean, it's never left the album all these years. And then I came across, you know, a few years down the line, when I was about 11, a choreographer moved a few doors down. Obviously, I didn't know what choreographer was, but that was the first time I heard that somebody was a choreographer. And his name was Harish. And, you know, my mum and his mum started talking, and they, you know, brought him in, and he started choreographing for me and his sister, Vijaya. So that's us on the Birmingham Town Hall with Harish in the middle there, the compere, and then his sister, 16-year-old Vijaya. And we were doing lots of duets together, you know, in temples and all kinds of places. I gradually started making dances, remember making, not choreographing, for local children and as well as ladies in the community, in the Gujarati community. And here is one of the ones I was doing on a whole dance thing on Yashoda and Krishna. And this person in the middle here, sorry, you know, here is me. And then these are all the other little children. And here's with me with all of them again. It's about 14. And then you can see the kind of people, see, that's me dressed in red being Yashoda, and this girl I was choreographing, she's really talented, can't remember her name unfortunately, but there's all those people watching us. So I was performing to quite a large number of people between the ages of 8 and 17, I think. So during this time, search began for a dance class, and inevitably, if you're in Birmingham by that time, you come across Nahiji and Chitraji, right? So this is how I found that in Midlands Arts Centre, there was some dance classes going on. So I turned up, my brother or somebody dropped me outside and said, go and find the room. And I went off because I was keen to finally learn some proper dancing, or, love of dance. I really wanted to train. I really wanted to learn the skills properly. So when I peered through the window, I saw Nahiji, and she was by herself and she was really practicing. And I was really curious because she looked so serious and so hardworking, and I was really inspired to see that image. And I think she came out and said, "What do you want? You're looking for something." I said, "I'm looking for a Bharatanatyam class." And she told me that the Bharatanatyam teacher at that time was away in India, and she wouldn't be back for a while. But I could come and join Kathak, which I did. So I actually started with Kathak with Nahiji. Which I really enjoyed. She was so warm. She welcomed me into her home. She even tried to get her husband to give me a part in his television show, which I thought was really sweet. But then after a few months, Chitraji came, and I went to her first Bharatanatyam class at Cannon Hill Park, and I just fell in love. I think the sound, her personality, the Carnatic music. I mean, in a way, Kathak was more closer to the part of India I come from, and the kind of culture, and the Bollywood films and all of that. So I was very close to that. But for Bharatanatyam, somehow felt like it was my soul. It was like it really spoke to me, very powerful, and it's something that I really wanted to do. So I started learning from Chitraji, and that was just an amazing trip. So Chitraji, thank you. I never forgot it. Just so much has happened since. But what opportunity I got from Chitraji, which was phenomenal, was to be able to almost live in a house for 6 weeks at one point. And I know there must be lots of you out there who are there probably at the same time. But I remember working on a production with Chitraji with Nirupama, Rajendra, Sunil, Basha, her senior students, Kiran, Gigpay, Sneha. So all really inspirational people. I just really wanted to learn, and I was observing that how they were trying to also branch out into their own work at that time. So soon after that, I met and fell in love with my husband, Nigel, and moved to London. And that was a whole other story. But anyway, we moved to London, and Chitraji's production was coming to London, and I was performing in the Bhavan in Chitraji's production. And she suggested that I take up class with Prakash Yedugude, my Guruji. Now I call him Guruji because that is, when I feel that my formal training in Bharatanatyam actually began. My love for dance has always been there, and I've always been performing right the way from the age 8. You can see that how many shows I was doing every year. People would come around and say, "Oh, can Mayuri do this for us, or can she teach us this?" But now I really wanted to just hunker down and really spend all my time doing dance, nothing else. So Guruji was absolutely lovely. I said, I humbly mentioned to him early on that, "Guruji, I really want to take this profession as a profession. I am really serious about it." And Nigel at that time said to me, "Look, Mary, you've got to really commit to this full time. You've got to do this every single day." So with Nigel's support, who's a full-time, established artist himself, we lived this crazy life where he taught me things like discipline, about going into the studio every day. Not that we had a studio at that time, but we had spaces that friends allowed us to use, or access space to start learning and practicing. So I was making sure that whenever I went to Guruji's class, I practiced so hard in the week that we could move to the next thing. He didn't have to repeat himself. I mean, of course, that he might have repeated himself, but I really was that dedicated in learning. So I worked really hard, and I was starting to take classes at weekends as well as during the week in Catford, one-to-one classes with Guruji, my own practice. So I, became really, really committed and dedicated. Bhavan for me was like my India. I always call Bhavan my India because it gave me numerous opportunities to observe, meet firsthand extraordinary masters coming from India. I attended all the summer schools, all the master classes, workshop, you name it, from any visiting master coming to the Bhavan, I was there. yeah, and practicing these things. And from these masters, um, uh, before then, I just want to show you, I bought this book when I was in Cannon Hill Park, Birmingham. You can see, it's just like, I've learned to look after books properly since then. And in these books, I used to admire for hours, you know, people like these, you know, have a look, yeah? Um, and then coming across this at the Bhavan, I could see this book is completely fallen apart, and I promise you I look after my books really well nowadays. But at the Bhavan, these people appeared, you know, at the Bhavan for one reason or another. I remember when Guruji said, you know, we were just standing in class, and this elegant man walks in, and he says, "Everybody, this is Ram Gopal." And, you know, I just like melted. I could not believe that this person I've been admiring from far away for years is here in the Bhavan. And Guruji said, "Mayuri, go and talk to him, sit down, have a conversation." And I absolutely didn't know how to have a conversation. I was so in awe. He taught us like the Tirmana movements and things like that, which just stayed with me, that you know, that lovely lessons that stay with us for so many years. I'm sure some of you must feel that, you know, when you learn things from these masters, sometimes you don't get it straight away, but when you practice and you really think about it and go back to it, it suddenly opens something in yourself. And these are the kind of experiences I was having at the Bhavan. So people like Chitra Visveshwaran, I have to say, a huge influence in terms of how to use space within Bharatanatyam choreography. You know, rather than the constant forward going and backward and side to side, she really blew that concept in a whole other level with her beautiful Dilana choreographies. I'm not going to mention absolutely everybody, but there's like Krishna Vani Lakshmana, Alam El Valli, I mean, it's Malavika Sarakai, I mean, there's so many people, which were hugely privileged. And also the great thing about Bhavan was people like Nandaji, Dr. Shastri, Mathurji, you know, if you wanted to know any translations of anything, you could go to them and they would tell you what the meaning was and how to pronounce, etc., etc. I've also taken up Tamil, Sanskrit, Carnatic music with Shivashakti aunties, if you're there, you know, namaskar. All these marvelous people, and I had the best time ever. But what was also happening concurrently at the same time, as I entered Nigel's world, it opened my whole view into Western art, fine arts and sculpture. And it was a whole circle of people who were brilliant painters, models, you know, singers, opera singers, musicians. And I met so many people through that circle, all debating about whether John Singer Sargent over, say, Whistler's work, or, you know, and I thought, who are these people? We went to the gallery literally all the time, every weekend or evening. So there were debates going on till early hours in the morning about the merits of this artist over that artist. And I learned so much by listening and gradually beginning to start participating in these conversations. So I would say that this concurrent learning of and being immersed in the Western arts, very much experientially, as well as the Bharatanatyam and the whole India aspect in the Bhavan, was a very enriching experience for me, really immersed in these two very different pathways at the same time. After my Arangetram, Guruji encouraged me to, because he knew I wanted to take it as a profession, to start dancing with Nina Rajarani's productions. So I danced with Nina's 3 of her productions, and what was amazing about that was that to learn that what you practice in the class, how you have to put it into performance. And that was a great training moments for me, because, you know, the whole concept of performing professionally and doing those tours and everything was great training for me. And meeting people like Prashant Shah, dancing Kathak with him, and then Kumunidi Lakiadi, you know, coming in and, you know, working with the choreography as well and really helping us. That was just, I was in awe again. And then it came to the Dhananjayans, who Nina had brought over. And with them, we were working, I think, 4 weeks or 6 weeks, I can't really quite remember. But with the Dhananjayans, we were having Bharatanatyam classes every day, you know, working with their choreography and doing these performances. And I won't go into detail, but that was a huge impact for me, working with them so one-to-one, and a huge opportunity. Even they then used to say that if you came to India, you wouldn't get this attention from us. I'm sure your students do, but that's the kind of thing they like to say, that how much work we were doing through the whole day, every day. So after that, also working with the Dhananjayans, it was a whole group of people dancing in it, and it was then that was the first time I danced and worked with Subramanyam as part of this production. And what was really interesting from coming together in during that production, we found out that we had common interests, how much we loved Bharatanatyam, we wanted to take it professionally, didn't really have a career pathway to follow. So how do you break out when you really want to just do Bharatanatyam, like so many of you do? I know you do it out there. You don't want to do anything except Bharatanatyam. You don't want to go and train in this style and that style and whatever. You really want to do Bharatanatyam because it's so rich and it just gives you back more the more you go towards it. So one day at the place, we're showing an extract from one of Nina's work to, it's choreodrome sharing. So at this sharing came the Dhananjayans and Javier de Frutos to give feedback. And this was so interesting to have two hugely different people giving feedback at that time. Was really, really fascinating. I mean, we really made us think what they were saying and what Javier de Frutos was saying, and we're humbly just standing there and listening to, wow, this is like different viewpoints, and he's right and they're right, but they all kind of make sense. So kind of listening and observing was really fantastic. So anyway, we were at the place and we were going somewhere, me and Zuba, and John Ashford, the artistic director at that time, a key person in our artistic life, stopped us and he said, "And who are you? What are your names? Come and have a coffee with me." Of course, I don't think we ever went and had coffee with him. We were too shy, or I don't know. I don't know if I can't remember. Maybe Suba might remember whether we actually had that coffee. But what we did do is actually put in a choreodrome application the following year. And Nazreen Rehman, I have to say, my first mentor in the professional dance world, proper mentor. She gave me work at Aditya News, the former avatar of Pulse magazine or Pulse Connects, and she was amazing. She helped us through the choreodrome application, kind of ideas to write, how to write. She really oversaw that first application that we made. I even lived with Nazreen, I think, for a number of weeks when we were in transition between living in one place and another, and her husband was somewhere else. So she was took me into her household really for a number of weeks. And obviously since then. So Nazreen, thank you very much. I still remember the kindness they showed me, looking after our plants and all our stuff as well, that whole thing. So from there, so we got accepted in choreodrome, and this gave us an opportunity to put together our first piece, Sudarshana. And I know that Sanjeevani always says it's her favourite piece, even though we went on to do so many, but it's lovely. It was quite a challenging thing for us to do, to really figure out how do we make this work together. We're so interested in Bharatanatyam. How can we bring a concept to life and work? It's purely from the passion and love to do something as a dancer and a kind of breakthrough. Here, Guruji was extremely supportive. We invited them, we'd go to the pub and say, "What do you think, Guruji? Is this okay? Is it going too far?" Or, we really kind of had that kind of support from Guruji the whole time, any of the creative works that we did. I even continued to have my classes with Guruji throughout that whole period of 8, 9, 10 years, and still did as long as I could get to the other side of London. So Sudarshana became, it's taken up, I don't know, it was really successful to our own shock and surprise, to be honest. And John Ashford got us to come and perform it again the week after in Resolution, kind of really unusual to be invited back again on the same platform. And he also took us to perform in Germany with companies like Carol Brown, and I really can't remember the other company, but there was these two Indian girls really, Bharatanatyam, doing this piece, totally Bharatanatyam. And all we had, we'd only pared down our costume and had just jhumkis and a little necklace and a little bangle or something on. But we felt that even that felt too much for the kind of audiences we were performing in Europe. It somehow made us feel a bit insecure. And I know that one shouldn't feel insecure about the kind of way you dress or whatever. But, remember, we were trying to navigate, really try to understand, what do we, some things were already not quite making sense for us because the kind of questions we had. was actually shifting the way we were working with space. So now with Suba, we had 10 years of working and creating some of the most wonderful duets, then moving on to ensemble works, which I know that there's a whole generation out there that haven't seen this, and then there is a whole other generation that do. So together we made a huge contribution to South Indian dance. I think we really did, and yeah, and I think if you are really interested in finding out more about Angika, then I recommend that one of our long-term dancers, Anusha Kedar, who danced with us for 6 or 7 years, she has written a chapter on Angika in her new book that's about to come out, I'm not sure. It's called Flexible Bodies. It's going to be published by Oxford University. So Anusha, there's a plug for your book out there. And if not, please do get in touch with Sanjeevani Datta, because she knows about this. And there's a whole thing written about what it was like working with us and what Angika was in that context. So how am I doing for time? I just want to do a quick time check. Oh, almost there. And then, so after Angika, I took a year. When Angika ended in '98, I took a year to think about what I wanted to do next. And so in the Atma dance world, I just want to say, for 10 years, I've been working within Bharatanatyam and just Bharatanatyam dance, creating and choreographing for both ourselves and performing it, both of us together. So to try something different, time seemed really right to do that. So what happened? One of the first things I did was to take a professional development course with Wayne McGregor. Wayne McGregor completely changed the way how I now work in terms of choreography, working with multi-skilled bodies. It's not a natural thing to go from choreographing in Bharatanatyam with the vocabulary that you know really well on bodies that are completely different, and their language is completely different to your own. So that was a whole new skill change for me, and which then led to many incredible opportunities. The list is endless. But I think, yes, my credit to Wayne, and then there are a whole other people. I've coming to the end of my time, but there's a whole list of, I would say, company managers, producers, promoters, who made a significant support, of my work or work as Angika or whatever. And there's so many of them that I think I'll have to write them down and post it somewhere. But they are amazing. Yeah, all of them. So to finish, I think we're on time, right? 6:30. 2 minutes to 6:30. Okay, 2 minutes. Let me see if I can answer anything. Okay. Can't see any questions. So I'm just saying hello to everybody. Yes, so I think without any further ado, yeah, I hope I haven't missed anybody out at all. I know I have, actually. So to finish, I'm not going to sing a poem, and I'm not going to do any kind of dancing. But what I'm going to do, I thought, is actually sing you a bhajan, which I learnt when I was 13 in this crazy, because my mom had me immersed in Indian stories and myths and spiritual things. And that's one of the reasons actually I've started also making dance work, because of my daughter, my lovely daughter, because there wasn't anything in this, I couldn't find anything to take her to, like, that had South Indian elements, something of her heritage. She's half Indian, half English. But I really felt she needed to see something with her South Indian heritage in there. And we were going to so many theatre shows, from her age 1. So I remember sitting down with Anu and saying, Anu, we were discussing our kids. What is there? Where can I take Athena? She said, Mayuri, why don't you make it? So Anu, thank you, because of, telling me to just go and get on with it. I went on and made the magic fish, and we're hoping that when these situations change, we'll be able to present Spy Monkey, the next one for children. But the children work has come completely because of my daughter, my absolute interest in storytelling. So are you ready to sing a bhajan with me?
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's a bhajan that we learned, and she loves it. It's one of her favorites, so that's why we're singing it. Yeah, we're learning many, but go on, go for it. She's gonna play on an instrument that she's invented this week as part of your class. Yeah, all right. Okay, ready? Whenever you're ready.
Which song?
This one? Did you want to do this one? Yeah, we know the one. Bhaskaram saptaswarudam bhanumandala tejasam sarva papa vimojanam kashate yanugraham. Bhaskaram saptaswarudam bhanumandala tejasam sarva papa vimojanam kashate anugraham. Somashekara Shitalam Namakshiradaharinam Rohini Priyachandram Bhanudana Pragatitam. There are many verses, we'll be here forever. So, but anyway, thank you very much. I hope you got something out of this, speeding through. There's loads of things left out, but you know, got to stick to the time. And please remain tuned in, because now, following this, is Subramanyam. So won't that be brilliant? So you'll get to hear her side of the story, and also all the wonderful work that she had, you know, she has been doing as well. So thank you once again, and yeah, peace.